church doesn't exist just for the benefit of its members, but for a unified mission to be used by God to make disciples of all nations.
Discipleship equips us for this mission, an adventure marked by sacrificial love, humble service, and radical generosity.
Welcome to Adventurous Discipleship.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Adventurous Discipleship Podcast. My name is Jessica Boland, and I serve at Heartland Church as the Discipleship Ministry Associate, and I'm here today with my co-host, Pastor Dr. Nate Williams, in an empty space today. Nate, it's just you and me.
No guest today, it's just us.
Yeah, it's been a minute
You
since it's just
chat?
been us. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, yeah.
This is our first time looking at each other doing this, just
That's
us,
right.
so it's going to be good.
It's good to be here. We are in season 3, episode 3,
Yeah.
3, and so we're excited about that. All season long, we're focused on soul care and the different aspects that come with that, and so we'll get into today. It's a perfect episode maybe to not have a guest because we're sort of doing a callback to episode 1 where
Sure.
we're focusing on the soul when we talk about soul care, but we're excited to do that. And so our goal this season is that you would be equipped for the mission as you cultivate a healthy soul, caring for your soul, receiving God's care for your soul. And then as an extension, here's the adventurous part, the missional part, that you would go, as you're cared for, you would go out and care for others. You would be an extension of God's care to the people, the relationships you're already in, but even as you share the gospel and go on mission trips, that would be part of that.
Yeah.
This is a Heartland Church podcast. It's brought to you by Heartland Church, and so our vision at Heartland is to live out the culture of the cross, and that you'd be equipped for ministry. And so we hope the podcast is a tool to help you do that. And we are, did you know, 18 weeks away from Christmas?
Wow.
The countdown is on.
That's crazy.
18 weeks
So
away.
How many weeks away is it acceptable to begin listening to Christmas music? This is probably debatable.
I guess as
out
soon
there.
as we start a countdown, which we've just started. So bring on the Christmas
I guess
music.
then the day after Christmas, because then you can start
That's true.
the countdown.
That's
So,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. So which, it's like 100 and something days. No, that's not right. No,
Don't do math. Let's go back to 18 weeks.
But
Yeah.
I bring up 18 weeks because I've got a
Yes.
book I wanted to make you aware of, and so hope that you'll take part in that. It's 25-day devotional, so Advent means coming, and so Advent devotions where you're celebrating the coming of Christ, and since He has already come, you're looking ahead to His second coming. So those devotions will help you do that, and links will be in the show notes to check that out.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah.
18 weeks to Christmas, and you can immediately get that. You can get it now, right?
You can get it now,
Yeah.
which means 18 weeks to Christmas, 14 weeks till you'll want to start using that book.
Wow. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very proud.
Yeah.
We are, as always, so grateful for you listening. If you're out there listening on Apple or Spotify, and now on YouTube, the last couple seasons we've moved to YouTube, and very specifically, you can find us at the Heartland Church link there under the tab that says podcast. So we would love for you to like, subscribe, follow on all those platforms, and let us know that you're listening out there. Give us those 5-star reviews, comment, and share those things with your friends. We're so grateful for that. Not because of us, not anything about us at all, but we do want the content and the things that we're saying to get out there to people.
For sure.
And we hope that it's encouraging and equipping for those adventurous disciples out
Yep.
there. So we thank you for listening, and we hope that you will follow and subscribe and not just find one episode here and there,
That's right.
because when you do that, you'll find it quickly and it helps others find it. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
So last week, and also if you want to contact us, you can reach us at adpodcast at heartlandpaducah.com. So email us if you have questions or just want to connect with us in any way.
That's right.
So last week, Nate, I shared about my mission trips to Italy and Scotland this past summer.
Yeah.
So we told our listeners that we would let them know some of the things we did while we were away, and you went on a mission trip
did.
as well. You want to
Yep.
give us a little update of what you did this summer?
Yeah, every year for the past 7 years, our church has had a partnership with a church outside of Boston, and so me and both of my oldest kids, my 2 sons, went on the
Yeah.
trip, and so it was very exciting. On the trip, we partner with them, the church there, to do a basketball camp, and the goals are simple. Through the camp, we want to help First Baptist Church Sudbury to have the opportunity to share the gospel with, I think it was like 5th through 8th grade that were at the camp, and then we want to also help them build a relationship with those kids and their families so that First Baptist Sudbury is seen as a welcoming and inviting place for them. And so we think we saw all that. Everything seemed to go well. It was fun to be there with my kids. We had a smaller team this year, which in some ways is a lot easier. But next year we're hoping to bring more people back to it as well.
Sure, that's good. Really good.
Yeah.
So how would you describe this trip different than some of the other places that we go to, kind of like culturally, dynamically?
Yeah.
Any differences there between Boston and, say, other places you've gone, like Thailand, Myanmar?
Yeah, it's very different than Asia. I mean, you're not going to an unreached people group in that sense, but in Boston, it's very much unreached still. There are not a lot of gospel like evangelical churches in the greater Boston area, and so once you we want to go and partner with those who are sharing the gospel and preaching the gospel and help connect them. It very much is like going to an Asian country where Buddhism would be the primary religion. With Buddhism comes a like same, like, sure, that sounds good. Let's add it to the mix.
Sure. There
really is a either I've never heard of Jesus, like some of the kids I talk to have never heard of Jesus Christ, or biblical concepts like hell were only introduced to them through certain video games that they'd played, so that, and it's kind of like, I sure hope that place is not real. And then they move on because there's no concept, but yeah.
Well, and I think we talked a little bit about this last week, but I think it's maybe eye-opening for some of our listeners that we have places in the U.S. and obviously places even where we live and in spaces where people have not heard the gospel.
Right.
We think about other places in the world that have not had access, whether it's physical, economic, like political reasons that make it difficult for them to be reached. But then you go to places like that, and it's like you could meet multiple generations of people who've never heard the gospel. So and I know you've been there several times, Brad. Friendship there with the pastor and just partnership. So it's a beautiful.
It's a fun trip.
Connection.
It's a really fun trip too. I mean, there's an aspect of joy and fun to every mission trip. But some of them, the travel's just easier.
Sure.
You're just an hour difference and less flights and all that. But it is a tiring trip. I mean, your basketball camp 4 hours a day, and then we're probably doing some kind of service project in the afternoon. But there is a fun aspect, where it's the kind of trip where you're hanging out and playing cards or Monopoly Deal or something at night, or and you're in Boston, so you get really good food, and the sightseeing is nice as well. Yeah.
It is on my short list for 27. So hopefully,
it's a good one. I hope it works out.
Well, thank you for sharing that
Absolutely.
with us. So before we jump into segment 1, do you have a joke
for us?
Of course you do. Yeah, hit us with it.
So what's the best place in church to learn about ice cream? I love ice cream. So
I don't know where.
You need to know the best place to learn.
I need to know where to look.
Sunday school.
Oh.
SUNDAE.
Oh, I should have thought of that.
That's right.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's very good.
It's not so funny, but I think good play on words.
Maybe we should have Sundays in Sunday school.
I think that's a great idea.
That sounds like a great idea for
the youth have done like the sausage biscuit fundraiser.
Yeah.
What if
maybe we do Sundays.
Ooh, there may be something there.
I think people need post-church Sundays. That sounds good.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So this season, Nate, you know this, but for our listeners, we are focusing on soul care. Yep. It's a direct connection to our theme as a church at Heartland, but then also just as we've in the last couple seasons established foundation with what it means to be an adventurous disciple, what we believe, how to live that out through these disciplines. And now you just talked about a minute ago, this cultivating a healthy soul, living this adventurous discipleship it's soul care for you, and it's caring for others, doing that in community. So last week we began to unpack the Great Commandment. So loving the Lord with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And we started the discussion with loving the Lord with all of our mind. So we're going a little bit out of order of the scripture, but we're hitting them all, right?
And so last that was for week, guests. Like we have a guest coming next week to talk about the heart. So working all that out.
Very excited about that. Having guests this year. I hope that our listeners are encouraged by that as well. So last week we looked at the mind, thinking, understanding, learning, perception. We looked at that with Pastor Mark Glass. We're so grateful for you, Mark, that you joined us as our guest. Next week we're we're going to look at loving God with all of our heart, our emotions, our affections, desires, and will. And in 2 weeks, we're going to explore how to love God with all of our strengths, our physical bodies, abilities, and resources. So this week, today, we're looking at loving the Lord with all of our soul. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today. So of all of these parts of ourselves, as we think about the heart, the mind, the soul, the strength, why do you think, or do you think, I guess would be the better question, but I think we both agreed already that it is the most difficult to understand, the soul being very difficult to understand and articulate. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, I think that there's a mystery to the soul. Like,
Sure.
what is it? It's hard to put our finger on even a definition of it. So like Nathan Joyce has described it as a container for our heart, our mind, right? The other aspects of who our desires, all of who we are. Dallas Willard is talking about it like a stream, to where like the soul would be like a stream where those things, your heart, mind, will, desires flow in that stream. But it is immaterial, which would be the reason why it's so hard. Like our mind, we think brain, we think thinking. Our heart, we naturally think about feelings, but even getting into biblical definitions, we can understand it's more than a feeling.
Yeah.
And
you can't sing it. We haven't paid for that.
We don't have the rights for that. And but when you think about biblically, it's your will is also. And then body, of course, physically, we could think, I feel this in my body.
Sure.
So the soul, I think it's that mystery where we wonder what happens to our soul when we die. What is our soul? There's just this like unknown aspect to it, where I think for a lot of years, I've been a Christian a long time, read the Bible a lot, and the word soul is in the Bible a lot, not just in the Psalms, but I've glossed over it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what does that mean? Yeah. But like, even there's a Psalm 7 or 8 talks about how God has a soul. And I was like, that's interesting. And so this idea, it is where our deepest feelings and desires reside. And would I guess be the way to understand that.
I think that's valid because I think a true or deep understanding of something often comes when we can picture it. Like you were saying, I can think about, I can imagine a brain, I can imagine my heart, my body, and it's like, what do you picture when you picture the soul? And so it is hard to wrap your mind around it because of the abstractness, the invisible nature of it, but it also the bigness of it. Like if it's all of those things, it is our, our desires, our will, our thought, like kind of all encompassing of all of those things, then that can also feel a little bit overwhelming and mind blowing because of the bigness of it.
Which is why we've talked in previous episodes how we want to avoid, even though we're taking each aspect of the Shema, heart, soul, mind, and strength one at a time. We don't want to compartmentalize them because in the soul, they all do overlap. There is this, you're right, this bigness to it. It's not just honed into here's the heart or here's the mind. It's all of that. Yeah,
and I was thinking that as we were preparing even for today, there are going to be other times we're going to make those connections to the overlapping because we joked about it being a little bit out of order based on when our guests could come and all that sort of thing, which is great. But I think it's okay because it's going to naturally overlap as we think, even as we are reflecting back to thinking last week, like we're going to see a connection to that with our desires and our affections next week with the heart. So it's all going to be an overlapping conversation. So
maybe another helpful way to think about it is like our inner life. Yeah. So it's inside. Nathan in sermons has talked about not only is the mission, he uses the idea of mission field. The mission field is outside of the body of Christ, like we go to share the gospel, but there is a mission field inside of us, even as Christians, where we're to go in with the gospel to our heart, mind, our feelings, our will, our desires, our affections, those kind of things as well. So go into our inner life and examine, and then bring that to God. But it, again, how do you picture that? How do you picture your inner life? How do you? It's hard to do.
Well, and it makes me think as Nathan, we're going to unpack this a little bit later too with the connection to psyche and this real, I think, push in modern culture towards psychology and understanding the self and understanding who we are and working through very specifically with mental health and all those things. And I think we are in a time in a culture where talking through the biblical definition of soul and the biblical principle of loving the Lord with all of our soul is important, because there are a lot of narratives out there, I think, in our culture that are trying to maybe redefine soul or spirit or spiritual things, and kind of creating a very broken, in many ways, kind of an evil version of that, that it's kind of a slippery slope. Like, I think there are a lot of things out there that may look innocent on the surface, but actually they're quite oppositional to the Bible and to God himself. And so I think it's good that we're talking about it, because I think the world is not shying. I even see, like, I just recently saw Toy Story 5, and like there's a new movie coming out.
Don't spoil it. Haven't seen it yet.
No. Oh, definitely, I would never do that. But there's a new, like, you see the previews or whatever, and like, as you see some of that even kind of slipped into cartoons and things, like about souls and spirit and even just like, you know, witchcraft and other things, that it's just interesting how that kind of gets weaved into culture in a way that looks kind of innocent, and it's colored in a cartoon and kind of fun, magical. So light, but not so light. But then also it could be pretty, like it could really drop into dark things pretty quickly. So don't know where that came from, other than to just emphasize, I think this is an important conversation. I do too. So when you hear the word soul, does that evoke any sort of thoughts or emotions in you, just in general? Yeah, I appreciate in this heart check segment we get into usually like, well, how does it make us feel? But even in you asking what thoughts too, because again of how immaterial or hard to identify the soul or put a picture to it. So I think feelings can be hard when it comes to that. Like, I guess the close, like, there has been a lot of confusion. Or even ignorance would be another word. Like to reference, like, reading the Bible, especially the Psalms or other places, and be like, oh, what's the soul? What is that? And you throw in pop culture and all that. What is that? So there is confusion, this mystery. We can often feel like we don't understand. There's a misunderstanding that we operate with. And yet the soul is also very personal. And there's a vulnerability to our souls. If we even use phrases like bare our soul with somebody, to somebody, bare our soul to God who cares for us. And this idea of like laying it all out there, there's a vulnerability, especially if we're going to go to the deepest places of our inner self, to then bring that and share it with God and share it with others. That's going to be very vulnerable. And so another feeling, it can feel risky. It can feel risky to dig deep inside. It can feel risky then to share that with somebody else. Yeah. Well, because we even use the phrase soulmate or like soul sister. So, you know, where sister. Right. Where you, and when you're saying that, a lot of times you use that for a spouse, like somebody that you've given your whole self to, your whole life to. Or a close friend, like a soul sister, somebody that you trust, you're vulnerable with, you're taking that risk to give, you've revealed all of yourself to this person, and vice versa. It's reciprocal. That's what makes them a soul level kind of friend. Deep connection is referred to. Yeah, that's right. That's really good. So then last question in kind of this heart check time. Thinking about something that Pastor Mark said last week, he was saying that one of the things that sets apart people from the rest of creation as image bearers is that with our minds and our thinking, perception, wisdom, reasoning, that we are set apart from the rest of creation in that way, because we've been made in the image of God. And so in that connection to soul, how are we as image bearers of God, how are we set apart when it comes to the soul compared to the rest of creation? It's a really good question, and we could spend probably another episode on the sentence I'm about to say. But there's a question out there of like, do animals have souls? Like, how are we different than, like you said, the rest of God's creation? Not so much the material creation of plants, but like living creatures. And I think in particular, what if we were to talk about do animals have soul, would be like our pets is kind of what we tend to think. So there's
but we are different. So I think a couple things when we think about how are humans different in terms of soul, I think it's connection to image of God.
Sure.
So we're made in His image. Animals are not. And I think Genesis 2, that's clearly what separates Adam and Eve from the other animals.
Right.
There's similarities. Animals do think. There are other parts of creation. There is movement. There's feeling, but that's limited. Like I like the Jack Reacher books and movies and all that series. And in all the books, like Jack Reacher use this phrase like lizard brain. And so he's like, when he is in this like hunting or going after the bad guy mode or whatever, he goes into this like I just got this feeling of like something's about to happen. He's like, oh, that's my lizard brain kicking in. So like the idea of the rest of creation, while there is thinking and capability, there's a limit to that.
Sure.
And so reasoning and like you would use the word wisdom, like those are all different. So I think the difference is that we are uniquely, because we're made in God's image, humans are uniquely capable of knowing God in a deep and special way, worshiping God. We're capable of rejecting God, of trusting God. There's the need to confess sin. Yeah. Whereas other parts of God's creation, while they think and feel, there's no like confession. Like I love my dog,
right?
And my dog feels guilt, when he does something wrong. But dogs also have short-term memory. Yeah. I mean, like I can't come back today and be like, "Are you a bad dog? You remember what you did?" Yeah. He doesn't know what he did yesterday. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we're very different. And so we, similar to conversation with Mark, where we want to orient all of our mind and our thinking towards God to center our mind on Him. That's unique to humans in terms of God's creation, where we can consciously orient our life, our thinking, our will, our affections, our desires, all inside of our soul towards God.
Yeah, that's really good. I think the desire there, a lot of people when they have these conversations about pets, obviously, I think it kind of comes from more of a desire of like the destination, right? It's like we cannot imagine Knox not being in heaven with us. You know what
Knox
I mean?
Is my dog.
Yeah, so right. And so I think there's this and I'm not saying that people aren't thinking about it in like in what you're talking about, like I think most people are not thinking about it the way you just describe it, as this orientation, this worship of God. Like no one in their right mind would say that their dog or cat or whoever is worshiping the Lord, but that it's more about the destination, which I think actually shows the misguided understanding of the soul and really the nature of our relationship with God and the eternality of our worship, beginning this abundant life beginning now from the time we're justified and through our sanctification into glorification. I think you're missing the bigger picture, but I think it comes from that I want to be with my pets in heaven,
which is understandable.
Yeah, right. Sure.
And any more time with it is all like, well, we always end up with, well, I just don't know. Yeah. Because I do believe that animals will be in God, the new heaven and new earth, when God makes all things. Because you look to Garden of Eden, animals are there. Right. But will you recognize your pet? I don't know. All those kind of questions. Yeah. And so we get way off track and sidetracked with that. But the main point, the difference is like God has made us because we're made in His image. There are soul desires of our soul to know God and to love Him and to worship with Him. And so when sometimes when we share the gospel, like there's a hole in your heart or there's a gap in your life or there's something missing and you've tried to fill it with different, really what we're talking about is there are desires deep within your soul that can only be satisfied by God Himself.
Yeah. And I think it should just be a point to clearly be made. We established this early on in season 1 with our beliefs, but just the value of human life.
Absolutely.
That we would say very clearly there is a distinction. It doesn't mean that animals are not valuable, but that there's a clear distinction of an elevated value of humanity because of their being created in the image of God.
I do know this. All dogs may go to heaven, but no cats will. Can we just say that?
I
I've
would
probably
amen
offended
that.
a bunch of people. I don't know.
We probably just lost half our audience, but I'm with you on that. I'm allergic. For all the cat lovers out there, I am allergic.
Me too, and that's
not only
why.
am I not a fan, I specifically am allergic. So make my eyes swell.
We're just joking.
Yeah, we do. We love all our cats lovers. We love people who love cats.
Like
How
that.
about that?
Yeah.
So let's move into talking about what the Bible says about the soul.
Yeah.
So hit us with it there, Nate.
So again, we've been in the Shema, which Deuteronomy 6:4-5 says, "Listen, Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength." And Jesus quotes this very same thing, saying that we're to love God with all of who we are, and to kind of go to the idea of what a soul is and encompassing all of who we are. There's what Jesus is going after when Jesus quotes this in Matthew, Mark, all the Gospels, is wholeness, that we would be WHOLLY, wholly submitted to God. So the Hebrew word for soul is nephesh, and Dr. Nathan Joyce talked about that. I don't ever call him doctor, but he's the doc.
He is doc.
He says, so that he brought up our English word for psychology, psychē, comes from the Greek word for soul that Jesus would have used when he spoke that there in the New Testament times. So kind of going back to segment 1 with things we talked about there in our heart check, this means the soul, it is the invisible, immaterial part of who we are. Like it is the container or the stream that holds all of the rest of who we are, but it's more than that. It's more than just this invisible part of who we are. Again, because God by soul is referring to our whole life, all of who we are, our whole personhood, right?
Yeah.
Our whole personhood.
That's good.
So it is, go back to that phrase, inner life, deepest part of who we are. It is the deepest dimension of our personhood, deepest part of who we are as we live submitted to God. So our souls aren't just like you go in Eastern meditation or just like any unbiblical or worldly meditation. Like it's more than just like having an inner life or a healthy inner life. It's about our souls, all of who we are, our whole personhood being oriented towards God. Yeah. So the soul says, we're going to look at like, what question does the mind ask and the heart? The soul asks the question, who am I? Who am I altogether? And where am I really orienting my life?
And here, before you jump into this, I just keep thinking, this is such a basic question. I think at for every human at human level, people are asking, who am I? And what is life? I mean, that's why we run to so many things, and so many things define who we are. Whether it's our desires, our interests, our physical characteristics, our abilities, our disabilities, anything about us or that we would describe about our lives begin to define who we are. And then what is life? We're constantly asking, what am I here for? What's my purpose? What is life meaning? Where am I going to find my greatest happiness and living fully? And I think that's just a human desire. Every person out there, Christian or non-Christian, is asking this, and they're finding it either in God Himself and in the things that what you're about to unpack with what Jesus challenges His disciples with, or in things of this world. And we're going to see in just a minute what happens as a result of either choosing life or death. Yeah, and you're so right, because not only do we, to take it one step further, that Christians would say, well, Christians would agree all of my life is to be oriented to God. Like my beliefs, who am I? What's my purpose? Sure, it's to honor God, but we often live with a disconnect where we believe one thing, but how we live is separate from that. And when
God talks about love the Lord, love him with all of your soul. He's saying that who you say you are and what you say you believe lines up with what you actually do.
That's right.
And say that that's why in the Shema, he starts with, listen, Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. The Lord is, he is one God, 3 in 1, Trinity, but he is also whole, W-H-O-L-E. He is complete, where his, all of who God is oriented in who he is and in the one direction. Yeah. And that's why we're to imitate that.
Yeah. One God and the one true God.
Absolutely.
He's the one, like Jesus says of himself, the way, the truth, the life. Like that's really good.
So then when our life is oriented, when our soul is directed to him, all of our personhood, all of who we are, then we are walking his way, living in his life, right?
Yeah. That's
all that
really
kind of thing. Which gets to, it's a perfect segue to the next verses, right? Yeah. So in Matthew 16, verses 24 through 26. I'm going to read through the ESV first, and then we'll refer back to another translation as well. So 24 through 26 says, Then Jesus told his disciples, If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life would lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Which is actually what he's been referring to with the word life already, soul. Yeah. Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay each person according to what he has done. Truly, I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Now, you've got the CSB version.
Yeah,
would you read that?
Yeah, so CSB in 24 to 26 says, Jesus said to his disciples, If anyone wants to follow after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life because of me will find it. For what will it benefit someone if he gains the whole world yet loses his life?
Yeah.
Or what will anyone give in exchange for his life?
His life.
So we see life and soul
as interchangeable.
Yes.
And it's not that one translation has got it wrong. It's that in our English language, the words soul and life are interchangeable because the original word behind in verse 26, when the CSB says, what will it benefit if someone, if he gains the whole world yet loses his life, or give in exchange for his life? And the ESV says forfeits his soul or give in return for his soul. The word for that life, for soul, in the original language is psychē. It goes back to its soul. Yeah. But the meaning of the word soul is all of our life, our whole self, our whole personhood, all of who we are, our heart, our mind, our body, and everything about who we are. So life and soul both work. Right. But the idea is that, here's the idea that we don't want just, he's not saying don't lose the immaterial part of yourself or don't exchange your inner life. He's saying, all of who you are, your soul, your whole person, don't exchange who you are. Not like, who are you? You're Jessica Boland, but like, who is Jessica Boland? Sure. The philosophical, he's not exchanging you don't exchange that for what the world offers. Yeah.
And I like that we're using both soul and life, because I think what you're getting at is to only use soul might keep it as this immaterial concept we've already said is maybe a little bit abstract. I don't fully understand it. Life alone could make me think just physical death, right? If I say lose my life, we even use that phrase. We're just talking about you take your last breath, right? But both really emphasize that they are the same, like that the soul is life and life is it is a whole bigger picture than just your physical life. Right. It's that spiritual life. Like when we even have used this in the past, like when you're born again or when you die to yourself, like it's referring to a spiritual death and a spiritual life and a spiritual rebirth. And soul, I think this word soul really captures the spiritual nature of that, because life can just be left as physical. But because soul is kind of an abstract word, I think the word word life really helps bring it back to earth to go, this is what that means.
That's right.
Practically
That's right.
of all of who you are, your whole life.
And which is why, like, verse 27, 28 have a end times, afterlife, like kingdom come kind of feel to it about, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Well, that's referring to his second coming.
Sure.
He's saying that. And so there is this idea of, okay, when our soul is oriented to God, like, and submitted to him, and you have salvation, well, your eternity is secure. That's right. But also, if your eternity is secure in Jesus Christ through salvation, then your life, all of who you are today, will be oriented to him as well. Your soul will be defined by him as well.
Yeah, which connects that justification and sanctification and glorification. It's I've been justified. My life, I've literally spiritually died, and I'm now like stand forgiven and set free in Christ. And now he's working in and through me. I have this abundant life now through that sanctification. I can reorient daily, practicing those disciplines we talked about last season, growing in Christ likeness to be glorified one day and be with him perfectly, body, mind, soul, with him forever.
Yeah, one day the struggle to orient all of who we are towards God will be gone. It won't be a struggle.
It won't be a struggle.
So here's the progression in verses 24 through 26. Deny yourself. That's number 1. Number 2, take up your cross. Number 3, follow Jesus. Number 4, lose your life. Number 5, find your life. So the idea is, if you choose to gain the world, you forfeit your soul, you forfeit your personhood, right? You give that up. So there's a really big paradox when it comes to discipleship. Jesus saying, if you make preserving your life, preserving that your highest goal, you ultimately lose it. So if you surrender your life to Christ, your personhood, all of who you are, you ultimately find what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's good.
So we're called, this is our vision at Heartland Church is cross culture, live out the culture on the cross. A cross-shaped life, taking up your cross and following him, is the same path that Jesus walked. All of who he was oriented towards the Father, towards his Father. And that's to be our goal.
Yeah, that's really good. So then what is, when Jesus says to deny ourselves, what is he saying, like, hate ourselves, hate our lives, hate our bodies, hate our souls? Like, what is he saying there?
Yeah, no, he's not saying hate your, like a denial of need or denial of who you are. But again, your need and who you are submitted. It's a denial of your selfish will, a denial of like the earthly pursuit of the pursuit of satisfying your deepest desires by what the world has to offer. And so what Jesus is exposing is the inability of self-preservation or comfort or success or safety or personal gain to meet our goal, to meet the way that what we really are. So like, sometimes I'll talk about in counseling where, like, with couples that, like, we all have a reactive cycle. It actually is true of any relationship, friendship, coworkers, boss, whatever. And when we feel something, if we operate in our flesh, we react to that, and that causes conflict. But deep under the feeling and even the reaction is a deeper desire, something that we really want most. And like, we might really just want to feel seen, but the reaction doesn't reveal that ultimate desire. And with our coworker or friend or spouse, we don't ever get what we want because we react to the feeling. And so the same is true here. Jesus is saying you never actually get what you want. There's another song. Can't get what you want. You don't ever get what you need, what you want, what you're actually longing for the most in the depths of your soul if you seek satisfaction from the things of this world.
I just keep thinking too, like, there are so many counterfeit versions of all of this, right? Whether we're using our minds, our bodies, our hearts, our our inner selves, our souls, what version the world would define as our spirit.
Right.
There's such a desire out there in the world to exercise and to live out those things and to keep finding fulfillment and delight.
It never ends. The pursuit never ends.
And it just doesn't work.
Right.
Like it leads to, no one, I don't think people like go into it saying I'm pursuing death. Like this is the thing that I want as the result of this is forfeiting my whole person, forfeiting my soul. But that is what it is. And it's this, like you said, this paradox, this irony is to live as Christ, to die is gain.
That's
like
right.
I have to it is a denial that's actually for my good, because then I stop being my own God.
Yeah.
When I put myself in the right place.
The denial is actually about losing yourself as your own God. Like that's the denial.
Yeah.
And really that's what we're feeding. We're feeding ultimately not just the things of this world become idols that never satisfy the need, but we elevate ourselves to the place of an idol, of a little g God, to where we're going to satisfy our sinful, fleshly, selfish desires, and that leads to death. That leads to separation from God, and when we drift into that, even as Christians, we don't function in the belief of God.
Right. So in Matthew 16:26, Jesus is asking, what is your soul worth? What is the value of your life? So as we think about, we've mentioned earlier, like things that of this world that we think might fulfill us.
Yeah.
So if we had unlimited money, success, influence, comfort, recognition, possessions, pleasure, security, in a sense, gaining the whole world,
right.
but we lose our soul in the process. Jesus is clearly telling us that that's a terrible trade. Yeah,
that's right.
Because even 100+ years on this earth is nothing in light of eternity.
Right.
So it's like you mentioned that earlier, that the eternality of our soul, it gives us perspective of even if we have all of these things for every bit of our life here on earth, it pales next to the death and the trade that we receive in eternity is separation from God.
Yeah. So he's not saying in these verses, don't become materialistic or worldly because you're going to end up really being unhappy. It's much deeper than that. He's saying our response to God with where we direct the desires of our soul have eternal consequences.
Yeah.
So you were talking earlier, just a second ago, and it made me think about Solomon. Solomon had all the wealth, all the wisdom, right? He says, okay, I'm going to honor you, God. And God says, okay, I'm going to give you really three things. And he is the wisest man. People travel the world to see his wealth. And yet at the end of his life, because he writes Ecclesiastes and has such a depressive tone to it, at the end of his life, his soul feels bad, more like death, because those things he drifts away from God, and it's all vanity. Yeah, that's right. There's nothing new under the sun. It's all vanity. And so it doesn't matter. And God was not wrong in providing those things for him. Solomon was wrong in reorienting his soul towards the gifts that God gave rather than the giver, God himself.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
Because God in his kindness, when Solomon asks for wisdom, he gives him far more than what he asked for. You know, like that's just the kindness of God as the father and the giver of all good gifts. Yeah. That's just God in his kindness. And Solomon is the one, like you said, who lost perspective and reoriented his heart toward himself and lots of ladies.
Lots of ladies. That's right.
So soul care, in a sense, here is valuing Christ in our soul and our life as a whole, right? So we think about caring for our souls is this reorienting of all of ourselves, our heart, our mind, our desires, everything about us, and valuing Christ above everything and everyone, including the world itself, right? And living with complete trust and surrender to Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. So this is what it means to care for our souls. The greatest care for our soul is God himself.
That's right.
And to be living with, delighting in, following after him. So caring for our souls means that we're going to refuse to gain the whole world, to gain everything the world has to offer at the expense of our soul, because essentially it is a matter of life and death.
That's right.
In an eternal way, not just a physical last breath kind of life and death, but in our last breath, it is a separation from God, is a spiritual death.
Right.
And the ultimate death.
That's right.
Is forfeiting.
And
that.
then while we wait on the return of Christ, or him to bring the new heaven and the new earth, his kingdom to be in the fullest sense a reality in our relationships and how we function in life, when our soul is not submitted and the parts of our soul, our mind, our heart, our strength, aren't submitted to God, that's where dysfunction sets in. That's where sin takes in. That's not just conflict, but that's where we feel, you might say, you feel off, or things aren't right, and you just there's a difference there. So to kind of connect it all back in Matthew 22, which is where Jesus quotes the Shema, he says, "Love the Lord your God with all your soul." Again, Matthew 16, don't trade your soul for the world. And those two passages, I think, belong together. That's kind of new for me this week as we think about this episode. So our soul was made for God, not for the world. And so I think back to that passage in Matthew 16, most of us who listening to the podcast today, maybe all of us, we're not going to be asked to give up our physical life for Jesus today in America. That's not a level of persecution we feel, but so like when we think about what it actually looks like in everyday life to take up our cross, deny ourselves, to lose our life. To go back to, you've said it so well, that it's not a loss of physical life. It's not a hating our body or ourself or our life. It is instead a giving him our soul. We loose the grip from ourself on ourself and submit it to God so that he has our soul.
Yeah. And it's living in the way we were created to all along.
That's right.
It's thriving in and with him.
It really is reflecting that image as image bearers. Yeah.
Yeah. So as we, in the past, you've used the phrase, where does the rubber meet the road here?
Here it is.
So some takeaways as we think about what does this look like to love the Lord with all of our soul, all of who we are. We're gonna start with worshiping God sincerely. So I think worshiping, which we've talked a little bit about worship already, but not just singing, although that is certainly a command and a part of living and delighting in the Lord. But it's offering our entire lives to the Lord.
That's right.
We see in Romans 12, present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, and this is your true worship.
Yeah.
So we see connection to bodies. So we're already seeing some overlap between mind, body, soul, and strength.
And so that's a great point. What we do with our body, literally our mouth, if it's singing, often in our soul, we may not feel like worshiping God. In our deep, we may feel disconnected, or maybe there's sin or whatever, where we're not, our soul is not oriented. But oftentimes because of that overlap, our soul, our heart, our mind follows what our body does, and vice versa. Right. So if we choose to sing, or if we choose to worship through serving, some kind of action with our body, then we are redirecting our soul. Dallas Willard says it like this, like it's kind of like skipping. In one sermon that he was preaching, I don't know how old really or what the crowd looked like, but he kind of looks out and he says, it really looks like y'all have given up skipping in your life. and there was a little chuckle, but he's like, if you go home and you skip around the house, I only skip with my 5-year-old daughter. Yeah. Like I don't skip anywhere else in life. Yeah. And so like but when you skip, all of a sudden there is a little bit of a joyful feeling. You're kind of hopping on one leg and all of a sudden you feel a happiness, a joy. Yeah. So what we do with our body does affect our soul. It matters.
That's really good.
So singing matters, not just when we feel it.
Yeah, and I think we might have used this phrase before, but like being created psychosomatic, that all of like
yes.
the way that our mind and our body, our soul operates, it is in connection with each other. That's just the way God's made us. So yeah, that's really good. I like that. No one's skipping with a sad face. That would be
right.
Maybe like I'm picturing like sadness on Inside Out. Like sadness doesn't skip.
That's right.
So then you also are going to make him your greatest desire and give him complete loyalty. So that looks very practically like seeking him above comfort, success, pleasure, approval, and possessions, and submitting those things, being generous with those things, your time, talent, and treasures. Psalm 42 tells us, my soul thirsts for God, for the living God. So we're refusing to let anyone or anything take the place of God in our lives.
Yeah.
So as we think about loving with him with our whole self, it's putting him above everyone. And we see, again, connection to desires. We're going to talk about those next week.
That's right.
We're going to rest as believers, rest in the finished work of Christ, and find our ultimate identity as being a child of God. My identity is not in what I've done or can do, what I look like, or my abilities. Even as we think about our minds, some people are very intellectual in our bodies. Some people are very, muscular and skilled with their bodies. As we think about both of those things, that becomes about us. We talked a lot about that with spiritual disciplines, things that we could do even of and in the world that are not acts of worship to the Lord, that are maybe just natural things that we're doing. And so as believers, our ultimate identity is as a child of God, that we belong to Christ, and who loved us and gave himself up for us. In Ephesians 5:2, it tells us that. So we see that Jesus has given his body, his life for us so that we can die to live, which is just beautiful. We treasure God himself, and not just what he gives us, not just the gifts that he gives us. You just touched on that with Solomon.
Yeah.
So we're loving him even when life is difficult, or when things maybe aren't turning out the way that we thought they would. Other things kind of throw back to even last season. We're going to know God through his word and obey his commands.
Yeah.
So we're reading scripture not just to gain information, but to know him, and then to see very clearly what he has to say for us to do, and to obey his commands. We see his word as a lamp unto our feet and a light into our path. We're going to return our soul to God when it wanders.
Yeah,
so that's repentance, right? So as we think about our soul, you mentioned earlier when things are off. When we think about relationship and reactive cycle, you just mentioned that, like, how do I make things right? When my soul, the guilt, the conviction that I feel when I sin, should lead me to repentance.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, that I'm gonna go back to the Lord, and confess my sin.
You read the verse in the Psalms earlier about soul thirsting for the living God. When we go to other sources of water, so to speak, we got to redirect our soul back to God. Yeah, for sure. And often comes after we realize that it's left us thirstier. There's a bad taste in our mouth.
Yeah, exactly. We taste that like drink from the ocean.
Yeah.
We're also going to surrender our will and our desires to him. We'll talk more about this next week as we look at emotions and desires, but we're going to say, as Jesus says, not my will, but yours be done. Yeah, and we're going to confess those struggles, those fears, the things that we want. And we're going to help, like you've used the word reorient a lot, and I've loved that. We're going to ask him to help us change my desires, God, like change what I want. Help me to want what you want.
Yeah.
So that all of me is loving you, right? All of my soul, trusting him at all times, and particularly during suffering and uncertainty. So when things are difficult and painful, we're trusting his goodness, we're trusting his presence. Yeah. And then we're going to love others sacrificially. That's a part of our DNA here at Heartland Church. And so loving God becomes visible. That was, I had the privilege at the time of this recording this morning of doing chapel at CCA this morning, and love one another was the message today. And we can only love one another when we know the love of God, when we see Jesus says, love one another just as I have loved you. So we see the love of God demonstrated in Christ. And so, so we're going to make, and then it goes on to say that when we love others, that is a demonstration of being disciples. That's how people know that you belong to me, when you love people.
Yeah. So we would, like, back to, at Heartland, we would say that the there's an aspect of your discipleship, of your spiritual growth that's missing if you're not living on mission, right?
Yeah.
We're equipped for the mission. You're also equipped by the mission. We would also say, in terms of soul care, there's an aspect of our discipleship and spiritual growth that's missing if we don't go deep inside of us to reorient those desires to Him. Because, and so in that sense, there's always, if we choose not to go deep, to get vulnerable, to get personal with God and with others, of course, within trusted relationships, all those boundaries and safeguards. But if we don't do that, just like if we don't step out on mission with God, there's an aspect of growth and connection with God that's missing. If we don't go deep and dig in and then reorient to God, there's an aspect of connecting, a part of connection with God that's missing as well. And so we need that.
Well, and it's a natural, like, reciprocal thing as well. As and you probably, our listeners have probably heard the phrase, like, you can't give what you don't have. You can't pour from an empty vessel kind of thing. And so it's that internal work to be able to do the external, because if I do the external first, it's actually coming from my own effort, strength, energy.
That's right.
My mind and my body and my strength and even my emotions can maybe do that for a little while, but they're gonna run out.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be sufficient. But God Himself in me, His Spirit, His Word,
He is sufficient.
He
He's our
is all
strength.
sufficient. Yeah, that's really good. So, any final thoughts on the soul, Nate, as we wrap up?
If you're jumping in, we encourage you to go back and listen to episode 1. There'll be a lot of direct connections to what Nathan Joyce shared in that episode, and then stay with us, because again, we are looking at each aspect of heart, mind, soul, and strength, but they're all connected. So you may even go back and listen to some of these episodes again and think through, well, now they've talked about the soul, let's look at the mind again, or next week with the heart, all those kind of things. Yeah,
because we just saw in that practical list of what to do, how to love the Lord with all of our soul, there was overlap in every single one of those areas with our heart, our mind, and our body. So our prayer continues to be for you this season that you are being fully formed disciples of Christ. You are caring for your soul and for the soul of others, and so souls of others. And so as we think about being transformed, we did this last season through the spiritual disciplines, but this season looking at what does it mean to love the Lord, specifically these few weeks with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, but overall just knowing the love and the care of the Father. And so we know that we agree, and even in our own lives see the greatest discipleship taking place in community. So we encourage you, as you're watching these episodes, to share them with your friends, maybe even watch them with people that you know and discuss them together. And we would love to hear from you as well as to how this season in particular with soul care is impacting your life as an adventurous disciple. And we hope that you are gleaning so much from this season so far.
Hope so. Yeah, and take that next step of find community within your local church as well. Right. Dig deep into those relationships. We're so thankful you've been with us all the way to the end of the episode. And we'd love to hear from you. adpodcast@heartlandpaducah.com is that email. And we're going to be back next week. We're going to have a special guest, I guess, pending the creek rising and the Lord returning. Erin Goodman will be with us to talk about loving the Lord, our God, with all of our heart. And so she locally runs a nonprofit, a counseling center. And so we're looking forward to having her on. And so we hope you join us with us next episode. Links to everything will be in the show notes. And so we'll see you next week. You have been equipped for the mission. You're equipped by the mission and now sent out on mission.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Adventurous Discipleship. Hit the follow button to never miss a new episode and share this podcast with your family, friends, and church leaders. Follow us on social media or contact us via email. You can find our links in the show notes.